What's up, everybody? Thralls here once again on the Croc Neck.
I'm Jammin John.
And we have an album review for you, and one that we've been excited about because we actually saw this band on their first ever U.S. tour, and holy shit, they were awesome.
Yes.
So we are going to go over the latest offering from Cytotoxin, Biographyte. This comes out on the 11th of April on Unique Leader Records. This band formed in 2010 in Germany. This is their fifth album overall. I've been a fan since their second album, Radiophobia. I picked that one up kind of on a whim, so it was all themed around Chernobyl and nuclear fallout, and, well, I mean, I was kind of fascinated. Then I listened to it, I was like, oh my god, this is ridiculously heavy. And for those who don't know, this is technical, brutal death metal. I thought they were Ukrainian for like the longest time. They were so immersed, or rather are so immersed in their themes of Chernobyl, like I guess they actually call themselves Chernobyl death metal. Like I figured it wouldn't be just too outlandish to think they're from the Ukraine, but no, they're German, and we really found that out live when they talked on stage, especially their frontman, who every time he said something describing one of the songs, like this one is about nuclear fallout, I restrained myself, but someone behind me at the show yelled, "Get to the chopper!" and I laughed.
Yes.
Because it was really fitting.
Yep, everybody laughed. And yes, he is fiercely German, and there's no denying that. Even when you meet him, I mean, there's no denying that's the case. I got into these guys with their album Nuclear Earth, although I'm sure I'd heard them beforehand because I'm a giant Beneath the Massacre fan, and during that whole era of time in my life, I was looking for bands that sounded like that, and these guys definitely sound like that and still sound like that. But yeah, after seeing them live after so many years, it really cemented the fact for me that I did indeed love this band and still do. They're absolute powerhouses.
And I was a big fan of Nuclear Earth too. Honestly, to this point, I thought that was like probably their most refined album. While the earlier ones were definitely brutal, heavy, lots of just disgusting slams and ridiculously techie riffs, Nuclear Earth definitely kind of saw them shift a little bit in terms of like writing catchier songs. They were a little bit more dynamic. They weren't just about like, you know, techie riffs and just brutal breakdowns and Chernobyl. Now they were about Chernobyl, but they're also a little bit more nuanced, and I would like say flat out, like this album sounds honestly like their most refined album yet. First off, the production is a bit of a change, and it kind of caught me off guard because I listened to Nuclear Earth not too long ago, and you know, just kind of getting ready for that one. Plus, I love that album, and to me, it sounded like they were trying to expand their horizons a little bit more in terms of songwriting, but they were still kind of going by like a little bit more old school, kind of like brutal death, you know, production. Like it still had that very plunky piccolo snare. It was a little bit more raw sounding. Here, this sounds refined, more polished, more full sounding. Like this is just flat out heavier than hell. And I will also say this has to be one of their most technical albums yet.
Good God, is it ever. And it gets right to it. Starts out with Hope Terminator, and I mean, there's no time wasted. It immediate. You turn on the song, and it's right in your face, full of arpeggios and ascending, descending scales, and again, sounds like a page taken right out of Beneath the Massacre or Gore Rod or things of that nature.
Yes, this song definitely terminates hope. It is a Terminator. I had to do it. I know. It's going to happen probably multiple times here. But seriously, what I really liked about this was there's no pretense here. There's still tons of atmosphere, but you kind of get that later in the album. But it just goes for like immediately within like the first 10 seconds, there's like 400 notes played. But this one, I feel like is just, again, like way more centered on like the technical side of them. Like it's still heavy, it's still brutal. You still get tons of syncopated breakdowns on here. Yeah. But this one, I don't know, like honestly, I feel like they kind of took a page from bands like Spawn of Possession, definitely some Necrophagist on here, and maybe even a touch of like Archspire as well, minus the like rapid fire vocals. But man, like this is syncopated to hell. This is honestly one of their most tight sounding albums too. Like everything is just on a dime. The transitions, the speed of this album. Holy shit. This album moves at the speed of The Flash after he busted a line of coke about as long as a football field. And then probably did laps around the world till his heart exploded. Like this is blast beat after blast beat, but what I like about this is it's still very centered on riffs and grooves. Like, yeah, there's tons of arpeggios and sweeps and fucking other guitar terms that I fully don't understand. But they're all here, but they're done like very cleverly. Like it's not such a constant barrage of notes where it becomes like totally wankified. You still get hit over the head with just blunt force trauma riffing.
It's a lot more melodic than I thought it would be too. Like obviously there's a bunch of melody in technical death metal, obviously with sweeps and arpeggios and things of that nature. You're going to incorporate melody, but in this case I would call this like a neoclassical brutal death metal band at this point in the game. Just between the tapping, there's only a couple leads, but the leads again are very flavorful and very tuneful. But yeah, like overall the melody in here wasn't something I was necessarily expecting, and it's used really well. Songs like Everslave, Transition of the Staring Dead, or From Bitter Rivers are packed full of melody. In fact, the Everslave I actually compared to a more, I don't know, like brutal metalcore almost. There's a bunch of harmonies in it. It's the progression overall, very straightforward, not just full of blast beats, but like almost like just faster D beats. I don't know, reminded me a lot of like metalcore, maybe a little deathcore.
Honestly, like, all right, and deathcore's not a dirty word here, especially after that last Whitechapel album. That's fucking absolutely disgusting. But, you know, there's a lot of groove. There's a lot of hefty syncopation. The breakdowns don't happen as, like, plentiful. Like, there's not a lot of those, like, big, isolated, just stupid heavy slams. Like, they do show up, especially on Condemnesia. Probably one of the most straightforward, brutal tracks on there. Not saying it's without its technical elements, because every song on here has it. But that sort of brutality, plus their frontman's delivery, which is very comparable to Phil Bozeman or a, I don't know, radioactive mutated gorilla. That's not just because he's a big guy. He roars heavily, but he has that sort of delivery. And, you know, like, there's definitely moments in here when they get down to these, like, big syncopated grooves where it has sort of that feel. But conversely, you could also compare some of this to, you know, like the heavier, you know, more groove-laden moments of bands like Decapitated or Psychroptic. Especially when you get down to songs like the title track and Bull Overdosed, which is a fun made-up word. But, yeah, there's a lot of these, like, hefty syncopated chugs that kind of drive the songs. And, like, there's a lot of spots where you just kind of, like, stuck in, like, the headbanging groove, which, you know, that was something I was kind of looking for here. Like, I like tech death. I like, you know, being impressed by just wild playing, but I also like hearing like clever songwriting. There's really good transitions in here, and these guys still love the riff, which is very important. In fact, if this was all like just tapping and noodles and all that, I would probably get kind of like bored with it, because like, yeah, all right, this is cool, you're showing off, and yeah, it's melodic, but there's no song here. I need kind of like cool movements and such, and like fun transitions, and this definitely delivered that.
Packed full of wildly awesome groovy dynamics. Behind Armored Doors, Eventless Horizon, Bull Overdose, and again From Bitter Rivers all incorporate a bunch of technical wankery. It's all over this record. You can't escape it. Like, I wrote down techie, I just wrote down everything instead of naming individual songs. So there's a lot of that. But there's a lot of awesome groove pockets in here too. Like, they don't ever get so technical and wanky that they sacrifice those groovy headbangable moments, because those are well needed for brutal death metal bands, or really any sort of metal. You need some groove. And I like that they work all that into these overly techie songs.
And honestly, again, like, back to the production, like, I feel like this is the production that Nuclear Earth kind of needed. I like that album overall. It's just, again, like kind of like, you know, more brutal death production, at least in terms of like the drum production. This is what it needed, especially considering this band is kind of pushing more towards, like, I wouldn't say a more accessible sound, because this is not like starter death metal for anyone, but, you know, it's definitely more melodic. Like, there's definitely more like punch to the songs in terms of like catchy riffs and such, like stuff that's going to get stuck in your head, not just because it was like, oh my God, the heaviest fucking thing I've ever fucking heard. I mean, it could be, who knows? But it's also catchy because there's like legit really good harmonized riffs and clever riffing. Like, this band will switch from like syncopated staccato riffs to flat out like just disgusting tremolos to, again, like just letting the arpeggios kind of just accent everything. There are so many arpeggios on here, you'd swear arpeggios were like a people that they were playing tribute to or something like that. Like, they were raised in the town of Arpeggio, which doesn't sound very German. In fact, it sounds very Italian. But there's also some extra like atmosphere and such on here. Like, of course, there are a couple moments in here where you hear a Geiger counter, because why the fuck not?
Wow.
And, you know, there's some synths on here, and the synths are very intrusive. They kind of just hang in the background. Condemnesia and Eventless Horizon both have like these big epic sections, or like epically dark or evil. It kind of changes the mood from being bewildered by light speed playing. That includes the drum work in here, which holy shit, dude.
I'm tired for that guy.
This dude is a fucking machine. Probably with like human skin over it, kind of like the Terminator. Yeah, I had to do it again.
Get out of your own house.
You also have like some glitchier moments on the Everslave. Like there's a really cool fade in, and you get this like tapping harmony that sounds like the computers are taking over. It's fucking Cyberdyne, I know it. And then you have like some like legit atmospheric sections on here that are like, well, breaks. Dead Zone Desert, which, all right, it's an interlude. This is generally the part where I start complaining. But honestly, it was a nice break after the first 4 tracks. On Dead Zone Desert, you're greeted to acoustic melodies. There's like wind and jangly things. I don't know what it is. Like, honestly, the first thing I thought of was, you know, like, what was that shitty planet that they fucking exiled Khan to in Star Trek?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what the name of it is, but that place sucked. But it's a very pretty melody. And honestly, it's a nice breather. Like, in this case, it's the breather you take when you get to take off the gas mask. But, you know, you probably shouldn't because you're in a radiated wasteland and mutants are everywhere. And that is definitely shown on Revelation, which is definitely a more like theatrical piece. Yes. Where you can hear someone walking. You definitely hear a Geiger counter once again because reasons. And then after him taking off the mask and like whatever chatter is going on in the background, I don't know, maybe he found the show that this band was playing in Pripyat itself while wrestling like radioactive bears or something like that. That sounds like something this band would do.
Sure.
But then he starts reciting Revelations, or at least as much as he could before he died.
I mean, why not at that point in the game? It sounds like it was a very rough day. Of course, once again, fiercely German. He's reading it in English, but fiercely German.
But honestly, that works as a good setup to the last track from Bitter Rivers, which is the big epic. Honestly, it was the song that I totally expected to close this album. They've been going light speed the entire time. They needed one that was just a wee bit slower. Not so much in terms of like the kick speed, because those never stop going. But it's a little bit more huge, epic. And this is definitely a turn in terms of the melodies. Like a lot of the melodies in here, neoclassical definitely describes a lot of them. Here, they're definitely more sinister. There's more dissonant melodies on it. And there's some stuff in here I would say is like kind of comparable to like Cattle Decapitation in terms of the vibe. Like Cattle Decapitation gets apocalyptic pretty well. You know, they just know like, well, humans are scum. Cytotoxin's theme, well, it pretty much just proved Cattle Decapitation's theme right. Yeah, we're scum and we fucked up the planet and everything's all irradiated. And you just kind of get that big post-apocalyptic vibe on this song.
Yep. And again, kind of catchy. And while I will agree that this is not like starter death metal, like I wouldn't immediately jump into this. Like, you know, you get somebody that's never listened to death metal and you're like, here, check out this record. Nah, this is not that. But if you were to pick a song off of this album, which might be a little bit more, I don't know, accessible per se, once again, I might say it's this song because it is a little bit more straightforward. And really, in my opinion, this last song is kind of a culmination of everything that appears on this record. It's got some slower moments. It's definitely got your neoclassical stuff. It's definitely got tapping and arpeggios. It's definitely brutal. But the mixture of all of that together kind of makes this a more like catchy, digestible bit of Cytotoxin.
That is an interesting sentence to say out loud.
Sometimes I say fun things.
A big thing about this album, though, is momentum. At no point do I feel like they lost momentum, even though, like, you know, Dead Zone Desert kind of slams on the brakes. But at that point, again, you kind of need it to, because if you're following this music and your heart is following the music, well, you're dead. But yeah, like it's just so intense. It's so fast. It's so aggressive at all times that you kind of needed like some breaks in here, because the most in the way of breaks you get on here are like, you know, isolated riffs going into a big, stupid, heavy breakdown. That's about it. This album is like foot on the gas at all times. And again, while we said the last track is a little bit slower, Not saying it's really that slow.
There's nothing on this record that's overly slow. Unless, like we mentioned, the two interludes or the isolated bass start to transition of the Staring Dead, which I think is the only time that really happens. This record could get pulled over for speeding on even a tricycle.
Well, the frontman looked like he didn't skip leg day either, so that's entirely possible.
He didn't skip any day. He's like Devin Swank, but taller.
And German.
Now,
in terms of any negatives, honestly, this would be one I'm kind of hard-pressed to find any negatives, but it depends on your expectations of this band. Now, I will say that this is less brutal, and it definitely has a more polished sound. In fact, the production was actually handled by Mendel. I'm sorry, I can't say your last name. I just don't know how. Ex-aborted guitarist. He's on a lot of different releases. I mean, turnover rate and aborted is pretty wild. But it has a much more polished sound than I would say any of their other albums. And I will say that it is, again, less brutal. Like, you don't get a lot of the brutal death metal elements on here. Like, this is more modern death metal, tech death. Like, this is definitely a little bit closer to, like, Gorod, maybe, like, Hideous Divinity. Yeah. It's kind of missing a little bit of the brutal, like, heft, like, in terms of, like, the, like, giant slammy breakdowns. Like, those only happen a few times. But that is not to say this isn't heavy as fuck. Like, this is just intensely heavy. It's just not that particular brutal death metal heavy. So it kind of depends on what you expect from this band. Like, if you want them to retain that older sound they had, this is definitely them pushing their sound forward a bit.
And that really would have been my only gripe, too, and it's not even really a gripe. Like, this record is still brutal. It's just not brutal in the sense of being solely brutal death metal. Like, it's not chocked full of slams and breakdowns. There are breakdowns, but they're approached differently. Like, overall, the entire record is approached differently. And it's still heavier than shit. Like, there's no denying that. There's not a single moment of this record, again, that I would call docile, unless you count the interlude tracks, but I'm not going to count those as far as brutal songs are concerned. Certainly not the brutalness that I got live. That being their first U.S. tour, I think the point was to come out swinging on all the chords and to be more brutal and just be like, we're Cytotoxin, have a bucket of radioactive sludge. We brought at least 3 with us. So overall, I'm going to go ahead and give this record 4 stars. It is fiercely technical, but executed with pinpoint precision. These guys are on top of their game at all times. I like the fact that this record comes out swinging and never really stops. There are a bunch of new elements that have been added, a bunch of more like melodic hooks, packed with groovy pockets. And really, there's not a moment on this record that isn't grossly entertaining. Like, just the way that these songs are constructed and put together. All the pieces fit, in fact, probably a little bit too well. This would be like putting together a 5,000-piece puzzle with no straight edges. They're all just jagged and moving every which way at all times. I'm a big fan. This is something really awesome I think that they've done with their sound. A great progression for this band. I definitely got more than I was expecting to at all times. The mix on here is awesome. I listened to it in the car. I had to go home for a little bit. I listened to it in the car. It's punchy. It sounds great. They did a good job with this record. If you're a big fan of bands like Gorod, Necrophagist, Through the Eyes of the Dead, Cattle Decap, maybe a little bit of Aborted, you're going to hear a whole ton of things on here that I think you weren't expecting. I really dug it. Check it out for yourself.
I am also at a 4 here, and honestly, this kind of surpassed my expectations. Like, right from the first track, too, I was like, man, we got a lot techier, didn't we? Yeah. And, honestly, it just reminded me of their live show, which, I mean, if you think, they can't do this stuff live, you're dead fucking wrong. This is definitely a push to, like, a bigger, more technical sound. Again, slightly more melodic, but the intensity on here, it's still brutal. It's still heavy. It's just not like kind of like that old school brutal death metal heavy. Like, it's definitely more modern sounding. And my God, like, I feel like these guys were just sitting on a well of talent that didn't necessarily come out entirely on their earlier albums. Like, yeah, it was definitely there. They could definitely play fast. They could definitely play a very technical, intricate riffs. But here, I feel like they constructed songs that are not only technical, but they're memorable. Like, there's a lot of, like, catchy, interesting riffs on here. And again, they're fun themes and such. Like, I love the whole radioactive wasteland, the Chernobyl thing. Again, so much that I keep forgetting they're German. Yeah, this is absolutely fantastic. And I would say, like, this could be their strongest album yet. I don't know. I like all the old stuff, too. I'll just baseline say that this band doesn't have a bad album in my book. And if you're a big fan of, oh, my God, dude, like a ton of different bands. Gorod, Beneath the Massacre, Archspire. I would say there's even like a little bit of like Cryptopsy on here too. Hour of Penance, stuff like that. Like if you just like a brutal, fast, and technical, this band should be on your radar. So check this out. So if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up, and if you were new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We also have memberships. They're only 99 cents, and our lone perk is doing a members-only live stream, which we will probably do at some point this month. Probably later this month, I would say.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Maybe we'll do a 420 live stream.
Oh, yeah. That is this month.
Yep. Easter night, when you're tired of your family and you're done with everything and you just want to eat a chocolate bunny and smoke a doob, Thralls of Metal will be there for you. Maybe.
Anyway, memberships are the main way to support the channel now. We also still have our store, thrallsmetal.com, with our hats and shirts. That is linked down below. And, of course, if you would like to join this channel and brag to people that would care, I don't know if there's many.
I don't think so.
But there's a join button down there.
There is.
And you can touch it. And it doesn't have to be with your finger. Get creative. It's all right. I won't judge you. He might.
I won't. Yeah, I don't think anybody here at Thralls of Metal is going to judge you for any way that you decide to touch that button. What is important is that you're here, and we appreciate you. Tons of content coming your way, album reviews. I promise that we will get to our next discography ranking, which is at the gates. It's going to be pretty fucking sweet. Just tons of metal content all the time. We do it for you guys because, once again, we are thankful that you are here. For whatever reason, this channel keeps getting bigger, and we are thankful for it and couldn't do it without you, so thank you.
Yeah, you guys absolutely rule. Tons of content coming your way. So one more big thank you, because you guys are awesome, and we will catch you later.